Hello, welcome to Astro Highlights for the week of December 3rd through 9th, 2023. I'm Angela Alston, and I am happy that you are here with us. So before we dive into what's happening this week, I want to invite you over to my blog. That would be at my website, AngelaAlstonAstrology.com. Every month I do a feature on astrological eating, foods and menus that help align you to the solar energetic for the month. And then I also have a narrative therapy activity each month. And Sagittarius's is remembering who stretches you. So that kind of walks you through a creative writing activity. And now let's get into it. So this week we have the sun firmly in Sagittarius, traveling from 1052 to 1758. The moon goes from a 3/4 moon to a almost dark moon, beginning the week at 1020 Leo, ending the week at 1504 Scorpio. Mercury is in Capricorn. It ingressed over last week. It's beginning the week at 158, traveling to 746 Capricorn. Venus is a big player this week. Venus is in Libra at the beginning of the week, the very end of Libra, 2817. She goes anaretic and then ingresses into Scorpio and ends the week at 6 degrees 33 minutes Scorpio. Mars is in Sagittarius, traveling from 622 to 1125. Jupiter is in Taurus, re-traveling 653 to 619, still retrograde. It has felt like it has been retrograde for a very long time, but it ends its retrograde at the end of this month. I think it's actually December 30th. And then Saturn is in Pisces, traveling direct, 114, ending the week at 1 degree 37 minutes Pisces. So some things to talk about this week. This is an excellent week for relationships. And the reason why is that there are some very positive aspects with Venus, which rules relationships, and Mercury, which rules communication, which is really the foundation of any and all relationships. So we're going to talk about Mercury's sextile to Saturn and how that opens a channel where it becomes a little bit easier to talk about hard things. Venus ingresses to Scorpio, where it is in its detriment. Venus is not particularly strong in Scorpio in the traditional schematic, but this season it's not as unhappy as it could be, and we'll talk about why. And then Venus trines Saturn, which is absolutely lovely. Venus sextile Mercury. Mercury trines Jupiter, and then the week ends with Venus in opposition to Jupiter. So let's get into it. Mercury in Capricorn, sextiling Saturn in Pisces. So Mercury in Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and it is in a sextile to Saturn. So it's in a sextile with the planet that it is answering to. And Saturn in Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. So we have this energetic circuit this week that includes Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter, Saturn's ruler. This is excellent for timing things, planning things that go out into the future, complex planning. Mercury in Capricorn can really see the big picture and the structure of things. And like I had mentioned a little earlier, it's a great channel for talking about difficult, important, and impactful things. Mercury in Capricorn tends to really take on those topics which some other signs, some other sort of energetics can shy away from. Very heavy, but the heaviness is supported this week. You know, there's a time and a place for everything. And this is the week to talk about those things that sometimes get pushed off because they are too difficult, they are too heavy. It's a time to have serious discussions. It's a great time for financial planning. Mercury in Capricorn in good facilitating relationship to Saturn. It's a great time for laying out some financial plans and for end of life planning. And then we have Venus ingressing to Scorpio on December 4th at about 11 a.m. Pacific time. Venus ingresses to Scorpio. Now, traditionally, Venus is in detriment in Scorpio. And this has real implications if you are a traditional astrologer or if you're doing horary astrology. It's in detriment largely because Scorpio is ruled by Mars, and it's a different nature. You know, Mars wants to cut, to separate. Venus wants to join. But in this season, the Mars is in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. So we have an energetic circuit that involves Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, ruled by Venus, because Venus is the ruler of Taurus. So while Venus is not as powerful, she doesn't have the same sort of agency and ability to do what she wants like she does when she's in her own throne room in Libra or in Taurus. She's not as debilitated this Scorpio season as she might be because of that relationship of rulership. She's ruled by Mars, which is in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, which is in Taurus, which answers back to Venus. So that's really interesting, particularly if you are doing some horary charts. Again, she still is in detriment. That you can't kind of escape, but it's not quite as debilitating as it might be. And then we have this Venus in Scorpio, trining Saturn in Pisces. And this is a water trine, and a very deep water trine. This calls to mind compassion for aging, for the natural process of things. You know, Venus can often be very vain and sometimes in a almost cruel way. This trine to Saturn allows us to exercise some self-love for our humanness, right? For those parts of us that might not be pretty in a superficial way. It's also loving tradition having a real eye right now for antiques. And Venus in Scorpio, trining Saturn in Pisces, opens a channel for a very deep and wise way of relating to others, of joining with others. It's also a time to remember our grandmothers, honoring the matriarchs and our matrilineal lines, recognizing beauty in dark and forgotten places, and embracing the soul's need for solitude, tending the heart and our relationships in peace. And it's always said that when Venus is in trine to Saturn, the bonds and the promises that are made during that time can be very long-lasting and very strong. So this is a really beautiful period this week. And we have Mercury sextiling Venus. Again, that Mercury that we talked about just a little while ago, Mercury in Capricorn, sextiling Venus in Scorpio. And this brings us really sweet talk, soulful messages, a softness to our communication, and perhaps even to our thoughts and to our dreams. This has been a very disturbing time for many. And it is showing up. A few of my clients have been saying it's been showing up in how they've been sleeping, how their dreams are been violent and disrupted. So hopefully this week we'll be able to smooth that out a little bit. Mercury in Capricorn, there's a sincerity, an authenticity, and a depth when it connects with Venus in Scorpio. This is a great time to have family discussions, connecting with elders, and also connecting or reconnecting with your foundational people, with those people who have been pillars in your life, connecting or reconnecting with your core values and with the roots of who you really are. And so not only is Mercury, which is such an important planet, such a personal planet, in positive aspect to Venus, it's also in positive aspect to Jupiter. This week, Mercury is trining Jupiter. And so it is in conversation and has an open channel with the two benefics. You really can't get better than that. This is a signature of good news coming to you. Mercury in Capricorn, it might be something you've been waiting for a very long time. Practical, positive thought processes. This is an opportunity. This week opens an energetic channel for you to stop the negative self-talk. Your mind does not have to be your enemy. It's also a great time for asking for and receiving help. Jupiter being the benefic, almost the avuncular. If you ask Jupiter for help, this is the week when it will really have a smooth channel to hear you and to respond. The universe is always listening. That's one of the things that I have learned in my 30 plus years of studying astrology. It's extraordinary. I don't begin to understand it. It's utterly humbling, and it's very true. This is a great week for applying for financial help, asking for a loan, fundraising, And again, making those financial plans. And Mercury in Capricorn, trining Jupiter in Taurus, solving some real life problems that you've had, not just making plans, although making plans is certainly, perhaps a part of it, but being able to take on the big picture, right? Not getting lost in the details. Mercury in Capricorn has a great way of being able to see what's elemental, what's important about something. It doesn't get lost in the woods. Imagine, I think of Mercury in Capricorn sometimes as a tree that has lost its leaves, and you're able to see its bone structure. Very, very helpful. And then we end the week with something that can feel really delicious. I mean, honestly, it's Venus opposing Jupiter. Now, traditionally, oppositions are not positive. And this opposition has its pitfalls, as well, certainly. And it's in the world of excess, because Venus opposite Jupiter, we're talking about big love here. And it can be simply too much of a good thing, too much indulgence, too much sensuality, too much spending, which is, I think, something that this season really almost encourages from all of us. Too much focus on what we want versus what we need or what might actually help us. Too much giving in, too much succumbing to our earthly desires. But I give this with a small caveat that sometimes that giving in, that succumbing, that indulging is exactly what's needed. So I don't want to be too much of a Grinch here. Big love, we've been in some hard times. And big love might be, at the end of this week, exactly the antidote. So to recap, great week for relationships. We have Mercury and Venus and a lot of really delicious and smooth and facilitating aspects. Mercury sextile Saturn, right? An ability to talk about hard things. Venus's ingress to Scorpio, where it is not as unhappy as it could be. And then Venus trine Saturn, Venus sextile Mercury, Mercury trine Jupiter, and Venus in opposition to Jupiter. There's a lot of potential this week. And I hope that you really are able to maximize it, because the end of the month is a little bit more challenging. We'll leave it at that for right now. Before we go, please contact me with your relationship question for my upcoming podcast, Venus Envy. Email me at angelaalstonastrology@gmail.com. Put podcast as the subject. I'd love to hear from you. And if it's a question that can be answered with horary, you will get a horary reading for free. And as long as I can use it as part of my podcast. And on that note, and I had forgotten to put a slide, if you're still listening, thank you so much. All my readings are 50% off this month for the month of December, as a way of ending the year with a little gift for you. And finally, thank you. Thank you for using astrology as a tool and a path for understanding yourselves and our world.